Moving on to the next question, which is from the topic of group decision making. Let's go through the question. Compare the process and effectiveness of first, interacting, brainstorming, nominal, electronic meeting as group decision making techniques. So let's go each of these one by one. So first we need to go through the process. How we are going to discuss this question. We will first talk about process, how these options are conducted. Okay, and then we will talk about effectiveness of these individual processes. Okay, first one is interaction or interacting. Interacting is nothing where different people, two people or more than two people, they're coming together and they are communicating with each other. Okay, there can be interaction amongst people in the organization without any agenda, right? So let's say if I am sitting and working on my desk, I'll be interacting or communicating with people sitting beside me. Correct. So interacting can both be formal and informal. It can be both formal and informal. So how we are interacting at workplace might not directly contribute, or how or what we are interacting about might not directly contribute towards my work performance. Correct. So effectiveness, if we talk about effectiveness of interacting, because it works without any particular agenda, it might not be very effective in case we want any outcome or conclusion or results are required, right? In that scenario, interaction may not be very effective technique to arrive at any conclusion. Correct. Next is brainstorming. What is brainstorming? Brainstorming are sessions where all the individuals in a team, or let's say whoever is in a particular project, they come together and they list as many ideas or alternatives as possible. Now, at the time of this process happening, you do not look at the feasibility of the idea. So first of all, brainstorming is an idea generating technique which works on divergent thinking. Divergent thinking. Why divergent? Because in brainstorming sessions, individuals are encouraged to come up with any possible idea, as bizarre as it could get. You do not need to think. So we do not screen ideas in brainstorming sessions. It is very specifically an idea generating session where you have to come up with all sorts of idea without thinking whether this idea is practical or not, whether this idea is rational or not, whether this idea is feasible or not. All you have to do is do divergent thinking, come up with as many ideas as possible. And such a practice is very useful when an organization is looking for new ideas, when they want to, let's say they want to come up with a new product or a new process, or they are trying out a pilot, they want to test a concept. So they can just simply bring all the employees and ask them to throw whatever idea comes to their mind. Effectiveness is very high in case where the organization is actually requiring good new ideas. Correct. But suppose in case company is on a timeline, or there's a deadline, or a decision has to be taken in case of emergency. In those situations, effectiveness of brainstorming session is not very high, for obvious reasons. Because in case of emergency situation, you cannot go through each and every idea or each and every alternative possible. You will be wasting time, you will be wasting money and efforts, and yet there is no guarantee that you will be able to reach to a solid idea within the time limit that we have. So in that case, effectiveness is very low. But otherwise, to come up with a new idea, this particular technique is very effective and very widely used in the organizations. Next is nominal. Now, nominal group thinking is quite similar to brainstorming, except that this approach is more structured in nature. It is more structured. Now, what do I mean by structured? How this method is conducted? So again, here also a group of people will be called to pour in the ideas, okay, come up with different ideas, as many ideas they can. But how this is conducted? This session is conducted with a moderator. So how it will happen? Let's say there's a table and there are individual sitting at this table. So these individuals will be given a pen and paper, and they are asked to note down their ideas on the piece of paper and keep it with them. Nobody is discussing here out loud anything. Okay. Then once everyone is done, the moderator will ask one by one. Every individual, he will ask and note down all the ideas that has come up. Then one by one, let's say individual A has given these many set of ideas. Then moderator will go ahead and discuss the pros and cons of every idea, and that's how they will go through everyone's idea and ultimately come up with the idea which sounds most logical and feasible. Okay, so this process is again similar to brainstorming, but it is way more structured. Now let's talk about effectiveness. This particular mode is a little more effective than brainstorming. Why? One of the drawback of brainstorming session is, let's say there are 10 people in the brainstorming session. Out of those 10 people, there are 4 people with a very dominant personality. You know, we have all sorts of personalities at a work setting. There are certain people who are not very comfortable, or you can say confident, while expressing their ideas in front of so many people. So there are chances in brainstorming sessions that although that individual who's not very outspoken, who doesn't have an high extraversion trait in their personality, so even though they have good ideas, they might not speak it out then and there. And in that case, again the purpose of group thinking will be lost, right? Because company will not be able to explore that particular idea. So to overcome this nominal group thinking technique is very useful, because here every individual gets to think independently first, where they can come up with their ideas and also get the equal opportunity to speak. And once all the ideas are taken from every individual, then discussion or group thinking part starts. And in this manner, nominal group thinking is a little better compared to brainstorming session. Again, the effectiveness, we will talk about effectiveness in terms of time, money, effort required for that process. Nominal, again, it requires a little bit of skill, because you need a moderator for this process. You need time and effort to conduct this process. So of course the results are going to be good, but you need to see whether the organization, the solution for the problem which you are looking for should not be very urgent. correct? Because otherwise this technique, although is very good, will not be very, very effective. And the last technique here is electronic meeting as group thinking making techniques. Now, especially after facing pandemic, COVID situation, more and more organizations had to opt for electronic meetings while sitting at their homes. Everybody used to come on Zoom calls or WebEx or different such mediums and meet virtually, correct? Now, the characteristic of electronic meeting remains same with as other meeting techniques. Okay, electronically also you can brainstorm. Electronically you can go for nominal technique, group thinking technique. The only difference here is so we directly discuss the pros and cons of it. The one major con is when we talk about communication. We say, it is said that 70% of it is body language, correct? And you are able to read body language the best when you are in front of that person. Okay, so because of network issues, technical glitches, a lot of times we do not switch on the cameras, right? So to save the bandwidth, and a lot of times while we are speaking, there's a lot of lag, or because of all these technical issues, there can be hindrances in the communication process, correct? So this is one very major drawback of electronic meeting, right? As a group decision making technique. But the positive side is it can be done immediately. You do not need to wait for everybody to physically come to the meeting, right? So in case of emergency situations, this technique, electronic meeting, can be very, very effective, cost effective, time effective, right? But again, because of technological what to say issues, the effectiveness might reduce. But if we consider technology to be a constant, or something which is there with everyone, a good Wi-Fi connection, good internet connection, a good hardware, software, everything, then electronic meeting can be as good as physical meeting sessions. All right, so this is about how you can compare these processes and effectiveness. Again, remember, wherever you talk about effectiveness, it has to be compared in terms of time it requires, effort it requires, money it requires, and what kind of outcome you are getting. All right.
So question 2B is, enumerate the 9 most identified power tactics, discuss their relative effectiveness. Okay, so this question is quite straightforward, as it is asking about 9 most identified power tactics, and we also need to discuss their relative effectiveness. So before we should start discussing the 9 most identified power tactics, what we should discuss before starting anything else? That is, in very brief, we'll be discussing what actually power is and also the definition of power tactics very briefly. Okay, because the question is all about power tactics and not power. So in first line, we may also define what actually power is. Power is, what is power? Power is capacity of the person to influence the behavior of the other person, so that that other person behaves as the power holder wants him to behave or act, isn't it? So that actually what power is. So we can define power like this, and then we will be defining power tactics, right? So what is power tactics? Power tactics is the ways in which the individuals They translate power bases into specific actions. Okay, so he uses that power of himself or herself to to influence the behavior of the other person. Okay, so in this way we'll proceed with this question. And coming on to coming on to 9 identified power tactics. 9 most identified power tactics. Okay, so briefly we may discuss here power and power tactics, right? So we can present the identified power tactics by way of diagram also. So it should be neat and clean, right? So first is what is the first identified power tactics? That is rational persuasion. Okay, you may write in any order. Okay, so there is no hierarchy to it. So rational persuasion, what do you mean by rational persuasion? So let me first tell you the names, and then I'll be discussing each one of them. Okay, so second is inspirational appeals. Third one is consultation. Fourth one is ingratiation. Fifth one is yours, that is personal appeals. And sixth one I'm writing here, exchange. And seventh one is your coalition tactics. And next is your pressure. Last but not the least is your legitimating tactics. Okay, fine. So these are the 9 identified power tactics. So you may present them in the form of diagram along with their keywords, right? So what actually is rational persuasion? So rational persuasion is whenever the power holder is trying to convince the other person with some logic, reasons, or certain facts. Okay, so that comes under rational persuasion. So in this way, the other person will get influenced and do whatever the power holder wants him to do. Okay, now inspirational appeal. So we need to define as well as we should also give examples along with that. Okay, so example in rational persuasion, what can be the example? Like for example, whenever the departmental heads need to present certain budget or sales forecast, so they have some logic or reasons and they must be showing facts on the presentation, right? So that comes into this rational persuasion. Inspirational appeals. So inspirational is whenever the power holder tries to build enthusiasm by appealing to emotions, okay, and values of other people, then that comes under inspirational appeals. Like for example, political leaders, right? Mahatma Gandhi, so he had so much influence over the people, so whatever he said, people abide by that appeal. Okay, so he was influencing, or he was trying to build enthusiasm among his followers by appealing to their emotions and values. Now next is consultation. Consultation is like participation. Okay, so whenever we are influencing the behavior of the other person by getting others to participate in decision making. Okay, so whatever planning, whatever decision making, whatever change is required, we are just consulting the other person to influence his behavior. Okay. Okay, for example, all the strategies of workers participation in management, that's a consultation form of power tactics, right? Ingratulation. So ingratulation is whenever we try to influence the behavior of the other person by bringing him in good mood. Okay, so person follows the route of praising or flattering the other person, right? So that is called ingratulation. And next is personal appeals. Personal appeals is whenever the power holder vows to friendship and loyalty. So the keywords are friendship and loyalty. So basically, whenever he refers to friendship and loyalty while making request to the other person, so that is personal appeal. Like for example, in between friends, we adopt such kind of power tactics. Okay. Exchange. So exchange is nothing, give and take approach. So give and take approach, or we can also say rule of reciprocation is there. So ek haath le, ek haath de, right? So whenever in exchange, what actually is there, that is explicit and implicit favors are there, okay, or promises are there. So got it? So that is whenever the two persons are trading favors with each other, that is under the exchange power tactics. Correlation is whenever we try to influence the behavior of others with the backing or support of others. Okay, so whenever we get support of others to persuade someone, that is coalition tactics. Like for example, business firms, they write many testimonials on their websites. So it is just to ensure that by getting the support of their customers, they will try to convince their potential customers. Okay, fine. So that is support from others. Pressure. So pressure is by threatening, as the name is suggesting itself. So threatening and ensuring, by threatening, we are ensuring compliance. Okay, fine. So people, those managers who are having very less reverent power, they need this kind of power tactics to influence the behavior of their subordinates, right? Legitimating tactics is the power which comes to a manager by authority or by way of a right or by organizational rules and regulations or policies. That is legitimating. So there is legitimate legitimate way of utilizing the power. Okay, clear? So we can write, so that is um, power based on authority, right, or we may say it rules of organization, right? So if we are discussing the examples, it means we are emphasizing on the relative effectiveness. So in which scenario, which power tactics can be utilized by a manager, that has been talked about. Okay, clear? So
Next question. Describe the major considerations in forecasting manpower requirements. What are the supply sources of forecasted manpower? So guys, what is demand forecasting? Demand forecasting is a part of HR planning. So HR planning is a process and it has got a sub part which is known as demand forecasting. Okay, so what do we do in demand forecasting? So in demand forecasting, we estimate We estimate future needs. We estimate future needs of what? Of people, not only people, but skills also. You can also write a better word, competencies. So demand forecasting is future estimate of people as well as competencies. The question is, what are the different considerations in forecasting the manpower requirement? So different considerations. The biggest consideration is, what is your business plan? So guys, your business plan will tell you what your requirement are, how much you will produce, and based on that only you will decide what kind of manpower is required for that kind of production. So business plan is the most important part. Then there are other operational decisions like your decisions of downsizing, absenteeism, then internal movement, internal transfer or promotion. Then what do we consider? We also consider the retirements which will happen or retrenchment. So every decision which will impact the number of employees will affect the demand forecasting. Not only this, guys, demand forecasting of manpower is also impacted by change in technology or production process. For example, we want to launch a new product. Okay, because you want to launch a new product, and that new product requires some kind of skill set, some kind of competency, some kind of technology, some kind of expertise which our current employees don't have. So it is not only about number, it is also about the change in technology processes, I mean production process or technology. Even these will also impact your demand forecasting of HR. Okay, let's come to second part of question. Second part is, what are the supply sources of forecasted manpower? It's pretty easy one. So first is that we have our internal resources. So what are internal resources? That the people which are getting promoted or which are getting transferred, these are internal resources. Then internal also another thing, internal job postings which are there in a company. Then we have got employment exchanges. Then we have got job portals. Then we have got referrals from employees within the company. Then we have also contractual workers, contractual staff. Then another source is son of soil. So these can be different sources through which we can hire the forecasted manpower.